Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Wally McGuire.
Do you know how intimidating it is to be at the back end of a program which has about 4 or 5 hours of nonstop, a fire hose literally, of talent and music and whatnot? Come after the break, when you're sitting in comfortable chairs and I'm all that stands between you and the reception, it's very, very difficult right now, I'll tell you. I like that picture, which was in Newsweek magazine about a week or two ago. It has special meaning to me because it's the East and West Germans who were standing on the wall right before it fell. I happened to be lucky enough to be part of President Carter's trip to Berlin before the fall of that wall and witnessed firsthand a lot of the emotion, the energy, which I'm sure that energy is part of what really made that wall fall. I want to start with some bad news. As you can see by the words there, the planet's life support systems, this is no surprise to all of you, are really in jeopardy right now. I think Al Gore spoke here a year or two ago and talked about the impacts of global warming, including the drought, which we put in one of our commercials a couple of years ago, but droughts, floods, the social ramifications of what is coming, sincerely worry me. The economic stratification the world faces now in this country, the gap between rich and poor, the gap between the rich and poor and the rest of the world, the social dislocation that's going to cause. We seem to be using force and organized terror more and more in our international relationships abroad. And at home, the intolerance leads us to what happens in Washington and the state legislators now. We need to start changing some things. I believe that humankind is truly at risk. The good news is there are expansive human possibilities. We have lots of wealth. We have lots of talent. We have the ideas. We even have the leadership around the world. We just have to figure a way to find our better selves. Al Gore, in his new book, he puts the burden right on us, the present generation. I interpret that to mean everybody in this room and people who are alive today. If we don't step up, I think that it may become a different world that we won't like in the future. So what to do? Better yet, what not to do? I think that the old ways won't help. And this will surprise people who know of my about 30-year career in the environment. I don't think we should start with things like the Clean Air Act or the Clean Water Act. Those were important. I worked on them. They've made a huge difference. We plugged up all the big smokestacks. We plugged up all of the big sewer outfalls, but we forgot to take responsibility for us. 30, 40 years later, we still live in the suburbs, drive SUVs, and pour paint cans and oil cans down our drains. And I apply that to things like the Copenhagen. We all hope that Obama and the leaders in Copenhagen figure a way to resolve global warming or come up with some policies. But do we really believe when those leaders come back to Congress and to their own things that they will come up with some solutions? They can't figure out even what cap and trade is, let alone whether it'll help. We passed AB 32 in this state, Assembly Bill 32, which I'm sure will make a big difference. But you know what? It starts with us. It starts with people. So I'm going to give you 3 things I've worked on over my career, all of which I think came at a unique point in history, and I think may teach us some lessons where we have to go. The first was 1984. The Olympic movement, many people don't know this, was virtually dead. After the what happened in Mexico City, the terrorist attacks in Munich, I think Montreal is still paying off its debt. The Olympic movement was virtually dead. No city of any note bid on the games. Los Angeles had voted not even to have the Olympics, but it was the best city that the Olympic Committee could find. We needed a big idea, and we needed to be creative in the way we approached what was hundreds of year history. So the big idea was, why not take a torch? Peter Ueberroth called and said, let's just run a torch. Let's start it in New York and run it across the country, 9,000 miles in 84 days. And the other thing that we needed to do was not make it a mechanical task. Unfortunately, subsequent torch runs have done that. You need to find the emotion. You have to paint a picture. This country is a spectacular place with bold people, people of great feeling, And what we wanted to do was literally in those 84 days paint a picture of this country and hope to set a fire, build a fire under us and rekindle the Olympic movement. Charles Kuralt did a special on this, and I'll just show you a little footage and see if you can see what I mean.
In the film, you can see a lot more than a long relay run across the country. You can see something else, something which doesn't seem to have anything to do with the Olympics. Jasper, Alabama. Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and the Great Smokies. Atlanta, Georgia. The sight of the torch kindled something inside the people who stood waiting for it and saw it coming and watched it go by. There were more than 4,000 runners. There were more than 4,000 stories to tell.
In Colorado, I ran with a young man by the name of Joey. He has been afflicted with cerebral palsy, and I accompanied him while he was pushed in his wheelchair for his kilometer. A friend of his pushed, and I ran alongside. To see the excitement in Joey's face was just unbelievable. My adrenaline was flowing, my emotions were so high. I cried, I laughed, I cried again. And the crowds were beautiful. They were chanting, "Go, Joey, you know, we love you." And he was giving everybody the high sign, and they were all saying, "Yay, Joey," and I would touch him and I'd say, "Joey, this is for you. I mean, these people are here to see you." And this... Excuse me. As you can see, it's still with me.
The first lesson that I think we have to learn if we're truly going to change the paradigm and address the big issues we have in this country, whether they be global warming or poverty or healthcare, is we have to connect with people. We have to find that emotion. If you think back at the civil rights movement, various anti-war movements, it starts with people feeling something very, very deep and emotional. That's what gets them up. Al Gore's new book, I think he talks about that. He says as compelling as the facts and the consequences of global warming are, people still can't seem to put it at the top of their list. We have to figure out a way to make it an emotional connection. The second thing of the things I've done that's taught me a lesson, in 1990, 20 years after the first Earth Day, Dennis Hayes, who was put the 1971 on, called and basically wanted not to just have a 20th anniversary ceremony, but to re-jump-start the environmental movement. We had garbage boats circling, on the East Coast. We didn't even have the garbage dumps to put it in. 33 states at that time were draining their aquifers. That still exists, by the way. And it had been some 20-plus years when the impacts of global warming were just starting to come into the consciousness, and yet no one seemed to care. We had less than $1 million. We needed a big idea. You can't just do an event in New York City and change the world. So we had to get very creative. We decided let's do an event in every city in this country, and let's do Earth Day, not just an event, but do stuff in every country in the world. We set up a new structure. We had to think creatively. Just with a small budget, you don't go out and hire some event coordinators. We had to dream up a new structure for social marketing. So we came up with basically the equivalent of a franchise. Think McDonald's. We created the Earth Day logo. We created 2 one-hour shows and one one-half-hour show. And then we gave it to all of our organizers in each of the 174 markets that we had picked in this country. We let them go in and find media partners. That media station had to assign a reporter to the environment. They had to promote the event, cover it live. And by the way, we're going to take 11 of those spots of each hour and sell it for advertising, not go to the nonprofit route of foundations and corporations where you have to compromise a little bit to get the money. We just sold spots. Ended up raising enough money to create, which I think today is still the largest event that's been a participatory event, about 200 million people. Here's some footage about that.
In nature, there are neither rewards nor punishments. There are only consequences. If we go on the way we have been, we will disappear from the face of the earth. Every movement needs a leader. Here, for good reason, are the leaders of this movement.
I have some kids of my own, and I want them to have a world that they can live in.
If everybody just does a little, that can make a really big difference.
We shouldn't just let it go to waste. This wonderful earth. We should do something about it.
We have to try to keep our environment clean so all the animals can stay alive that we have still.
Teach your parents well. The children's hell will slowly go by, and feed them on your dreams.
There's about 500,000 in D.C.
The one you know by.
200,000 in Boston.
Don't you ask them
140 countries, I think, had events.
so just look at them and sigh.
750,000 in New York. And here in San Francisco, about 200,000.
Earth Day is over, or nearly over, everywhere. And right now the Earth might well be asking, will you still love me tomorrow? I mean, if this is the Earth's day, who do the other 364 days belong to? Is one day all that the abbreviated American attention span can handle? Will we be up to the challenge of doing something before we get bored? I think so. But then I think people can get smarter and not just older. It's not now, never was, and never will be easy being green. And so it goes.
That environmentalist Kermit the Frog, that was that quote. The final time I applied some of the lessons that I've learned over time was in 2000, at the end of 2000 and 2001. I got a call from the governor's office. We were going into an energy crisis where 34 days of rolling blackouts were predicted, $16 billion of economic loss just in the 3 summer months. And we were in a situation where the standard solution was not going to work, even though they had started to try it. They passed SB, Senate Bill 5X, and they threw money at it, $800 million of money, primarily going into rebates for appliances that didn't exist and lights which we had to bring in from China that didn't work. And we started to blame people. We blamed Enron. We blamed the governor and kicked him out of office. The bottom line is the answer resided within all of us. We're the people who use energy. It's not government's responsibility. So the strategy that was put together became known as the Cigar Strategy. TEDster, John Danner, I don't think he's here today, actually, gave me the recommendation for that acronym. But that stands for the targets, the 4 T's of a good social marketing campaign. The first T is target. The cigar is the commercial sector, industrial, governmental, agriculture, and residential sector. In a speech I gave to a room of C-level folks, not pretty much the size of this room, where there was nothing but anger and venom coming at why government hadn't fixed it, all I had to do was tell them that if they unscrewed every 4th light bulb in every building, I'm sure everybody in this room can figure out some lights to pull out, and turn the thermostats up to 78, that saves 5,000 megawatts in California, and that was the shortage. The energy crisis is done if only they would take those actions. The second target, if the target is across the top, if it's a grid, down this side, think of the different ways you can take action. You can mandate activities. You can incent activities. You could do public education. We actually worked with the agricultural sector just to do their pumping for irrigation off-peak and use surface waters during peak. We saved more power, 400 megawatts, than the $800 million of rebates did. I'm going to show you some spots that we ran. Remember I talked about emotion. When people are angry and things are bad, one of the emotions you have to use is humor. So here's some of the Flex Your Power spots that we created.
This is an obvious waste of electricity. But there are probably a few things you're doing that aren't exactly helping during this power emergency either. Like not turning off the stereo, computer, and TV when you leave a room, or bothering to flick off those lights. If we all did just that, it would help out a lot. And it's not even hard.
Not even hard. That was the first timing on a campaign. You have to roll it out in stages. Not hard. We had to convince people.
Why don't you put that frozen pizza back and go out to dinner with me instead?
Oh, sorry, I have to do my laundry tonight.
By waiting until after 7 p.m. to use major appliances, you'll help avoid rolling blackouts.
What are you doing tomorrow night?
The dishes.
And you just may find it has other advantages as well.
Next Wednesday...
I've got to vacuum Wednesdays.
Help conserve energy. Together, we can do this.
I like your cart.
Together, we're in it. We had to create a sense of movement. Other people are doing it.
When you were a child, you watched your father walk from empty room to empty room, turning off lights. Now you find yourself doing the same thing, and you're mumbling to yourself, when will these kids ever learn? Well, guess who's watching you? Conservation, it's a way of life.
Change those activities into a permanent situation.
They lived happily.
This is my favorite ad, by the way.
Ever after.
Waiting until after 7 p.m. to use major appliances helps avoid rolling blackouts. Conservation, it's a way of life.
My name is Talia, and this is the legacy I leave the children I teach. We need to continue the fight against global warming. We need to stop wasting energy before things spin out of control. The question is, will we do enough?
Then you move into an emotional pitch of global warming.
Because actions speak louder than words.
Got Yoko Ono to give us the rights to the song to thank people when we got through the energy crisis. So what are the lessons? Think big. It's easy, much easier to do a big thing than a small thing. You get the attention of people who are important, who have money, and people want to be involved in something that's meaningful and big. You think small, you get small. You have to find the emotion. If you truly want to transform what's out there, you have to find the emotional hook. You have to structure it not top down, but you have to find people where they are. That's where the issues and where the solutions lie. And there is no silver bullet. There's no act. There's no treaty. It's what all of us do in our lives. So whether you do it through art, whether you do it through technology, whether you do it in the business sector, people, I think it's time that we all figure out how to make this world a better place, and we better start right now. So thank you very much.